The first video of 2026, and I wish you all the best in 2026 and health and happiness for 2026. And I wish, hopefully, everybody have a better year than last year. But sadly, we have to talk about it, and again, unfortunately, this has to be brought up, but it's a huge crisis for the West and the whole world in general, not even just Ireland and the Western countries across the world, Japan, other countries. That is the decline in birth rates. Now, we're not allowed to talk about why this could be happening in a lot of cases. We're not allowed conspiracy theories if we bring up any, why this is happening, etc. But it is very, very worrying, and I want to just briefly touch on one figure, and particularly for Ireland, it's very, very worrying. As you know, Ireland's not a huge country. We do have a good lot of people, of course, but it's not a huge country like, say, Japan or China, etc., or the United States. Ireland is still a very small country. But as you can see, in 2010, the birth rate peaked, which was 77,000, but in 2024 it was very, very bad, a 20% decrease in only a few years. This is not 100 years in the difference, only a few years in the difference. In 2024, there was only 54,000, and I think even when we get the figures, when all is counted up, probably for last year, 2025, it'd probably be barely even 30,000, maybe even we could be at 40,000. What I mean to say is, every year or so it's going down by 5 to 10% in some cases, and as you see here, a lot in 10 years, less than 10 years nearly. It went down by a huge amount. That's a huge decrease in the population. Now, of course, straight away the media in this country is saying, let's bring in more people from Timbuktu, etc., from all over the world. But this is the thing, and this is the main problem. We have to face reality here. There's so many Irish people leaving day in, day out. Hundreds of thousands of young Irish people in their 30s are leaving because they can't afford a house. They can't afford to live here. And we're suggesting bringing in the whole world. If we take and keep our people that are going to Australia and to New Zealand, we don't need anybody from Timbuktu, etc. We need our own people, and that's the simple fact. Because there's so many Irish people, and the only reason why they won't stay here, because they can't afford to live here. Either they live on the streets, which they don't want to raise a family, and nobody can raise a family. If you want to have children, etc., you need security. You need a house. You need somewhere to have the children to grow up safely and to be looked after instead of living on the street. But the Irish government seem to know what to acknowledge that, and the same with NGOs, etc. They like bring in the world. That's not going to solve the issue. That's not really going to solve it. Because let's be fair, there's hundreds of thousands of young Irish people. I can even take a 3 or 4 off the top of my head that there's a woman and a man in the relationship, and they're simply trying to get a mortgage, they're trying to get a house, and they're trying to make ends meet. And unfortunately, they are thinking about Australia. And they're thinking about Australia getting a life over there because they can actually afford a place. More than in Ireland, take for example. And I know many couples like that, and they could have children, but they're not, and they're not having this early now. Probably by the time they get around to having some kind of a stable life, being in their 40s or even in their 50s, by the time they get a stable life, they can't have children now because they don't have security. Because it takes a lot to raise a child nowadays. You need a lot of money behind you to get them through school and look after them. It's a lot of money. It's not cheap. Years ago, times were tough, but money lasted a lot more now compared to nowadays. But this is the thing, the Irish government are not suggesting, let's try, the first thing you think they'll be suggesting, let's keep our own people here, let's try and help our young people, like, take for example, me and my 30s here. The government are giving me fuck all. The government basically say, fuck you, they come at the end of the week, and they take half of my salary and say, fuck you, we're not giving you a penny. And when if I get sick now in the morning, and I go into the hospital, waiting hours on the trolley, left to what? And the same with many things. If I get attacked in the morning, the state will let the people off who attacked me. What I'm trying to say, the state doesn't give a shit about its young people. Straight up, and that's to be totally honest, the Irish state doesn't give a shit. Couldn't give a damn about young people. But it's all just for their back pocket to pay for them, mainly too. That's what they're worried about. Because obviously lack of people working, there would be less taxes for them, which is not much loss for the politicians, but they'd be more worried about their salary. That's all they're thinking about. But yeah, this is insane because we need more Irish babies. We don't need people come from Timbuktu. There's so many Irish people that want to build a life here and they simply can't. So we should keep our own people here, and if that's far right extremist, so be it. But that's the solution. That really is the solution, because the main problem is housing. That's the main problem here compared to every other country in the world. Irish people there's so many Irish people in relationships, and they simply can't get a house. So why would they have 2 or 3 children, for example, one child, if they can't get a place to live, or they're in a rented accommodation, and at any moment the landlord could come along and say I'm selling up and throw them out of the house or put the rent up, etc. There's no security for people. And that's the thing, there's no security. So why would Irish people stay here and have a family? Because we want Irish people to have a family and stay here, of course. But this is the thing, bringing in people from Timbuktu to have no relations to this country, it's not benefiting, it's bringing in security to the state, to be totally honest, in a lot of cases. because we don't know half of these people that's coming in, and half of the time we don't even know who they are, etc. In a lot of cases, and that's just a simple fact. We can't deny that. We know good at what some people are, of course, but a lot of the time they're coming on fake documents and sometimes no documents, and we don't know who they are. But this is the thing. There's so many, as I say, the problem is that so many Irish people, 100,000 could have left in the last 2 years, 100,000 Irish people that could have stayed here and had children. But that's what's happening, and that's the problem. And the things have got too expensive, and that's the problem too, in the way too. And it's all to do with housing. It's all to do with living too, the cost of living too, like raising a child, putting them through school. It's not easy. It's not easy as it used to be. Years ago it was difficult, don't get me wrong. But things were doable, but nowadays it's simply impossible. It's simple, and that's just as reality. Years ago it was hard, it was difficult. But it's basically gone into the impossible level now. But there's many other things you could do. For first, I would suggest that we would give huge grants to Irish people when they get to 18 or so. That the Irish state would give 15,000 or something like that in a grant to young people to stay here when they get out of secondary school. 18,000 euro. Try and whatever they want to do, 18,000 or 20,000 or whatever you want to say, to keep them here, to keep Irish people here. To give them some kind of money to start off in life. To build a foundation. I know it's not that much. You'd be saying you probably should give them 100,000 each, but we have to think of the economy here. We can't just give Irish people 100,000 because we can't be giving away free things. But at least give them a start in life, and then of course try to help them get housing, try to help them get affordable childcare, etc. And that's the main things too. And of course bring down the cost of food, etc., electricity and stuff, and all needs to be brought down too. But there's many different things, and straight away the Irish media let's bring in more people. Let's bring in more people from Timbuktu, because as we know too, Ireland's Ireland's social economy is in turmoil at the moment. What I mean by social economy is the health services in crisis. Nobody can get appointments. People are lying on trolleys, dying on trolleys. People are dying in acts of emergency. The crime has gone through the roof. All that, etc., etc. That's affecting people having children too, because they don't feel safe in this country. And especially the world turmoil at the moment, and that's another thing, the turmoil in the world. We don't know what could happen now in the next week or two, particularly with wars increasing, etc. And it's a sad thing to bring up in 2026, but something that needs to be talked about. But my suggestion is we keep our own people here, and we don't need as many people coming in. Obviously we've brought in a huge amount of people the last few years, and that's not helping the birth rate. The birth rate's not going up at all, really, in a way. But there's so many people leaving, Irish people leaving. We should keep them here. And we should help them, and that's the solution, helping them to have children by giving them security. And I think that's the main, giving them security, giving them proper housing, giving them security. I think that's the main thing. And if that's far-right extremism, so be it, but we should look after our own people first, and that's the same as any other country. Any sovereign country has the right to look after their own people first before anybody else. It's the same in any other country across the world, and I would say that for any country across the world, your own people should come first. But let me know to take subscribe for more, and bye.